Okay, so in this video we're going to have a look at how we set up the aperture priority, shutter priority or manual modes, and they're on this dial on the top. And typically you've probably been using on here the automatic setting, and then there's all kinds of these are the sort of settings you would find on your compact camera and might be tempted to stay with. Maybe this is what you do. You've got a sport mode, a landscape mode, all different scenes, macro. I'm not particularly going through those today. We're just going to have a look at you just setting up, and that's all we are doing, is just really going over. I want to look at these top three here. We've got manual mode, which is just an M, A, which is aperture priority, and S, which is our shutter priority. So let me just quickly go through scenarios maybe as to when you would use these. So we're on shutter priority at the moment. When would we set? So what you're doing here is you're telling the camera a shutter speed and it will work out the aperture to suit it. So on this, we're in my studio. It's quite reasonably dark in here. So I'm telling it on a shutter priority that I want it to be on. Let's see what this is held on here. 20th of a second, which is quite slow. And that's given me a big aperture there. If I take that up, say maybe I'm shooting at 160, notice this is flashing now and it's telling me that its subject is too dark. This is a good feature on the Nikon. It really has a good informative screen on the back, and so it's telling me that I can't shoot at that. So I've either got to take this down and it's happy now at 60th, or the other thing I can do is to set the ISO, and you'll see that in another video. Right, now let's just jump on to aperture priority. This same dial on the top here then is the one that I'm changing. And see, this time it's the aperture that's moving. So it's as low as it will go, 5.3. It'll go down to 3.5 now because it's on its widest on this zoom lens. You will find that will happen on these lenses. And it typically will say that on the front of the lens. It'll say 3.5 to 5.6 in this case, and that's what it means, is that when it's wide open it can cope with an aperture of 3.5, but when you zoom in, 5.6 is as good as you're going to get, and that's typical. So this will change. It's clever because I've told it to go to 3.5. When it knows it can't go that low and it's 5.6, it'll adjust, but when I move that back it will still go back to its lowest point. So that's aperture priority. And then manual mode is when we're telling it everything that we want to do ourselves. So I move this dial here, and on this one now it's changing the shutter speed. And what I can do is if I just touch this, it'll show me on this dial whether I'm under or overexposed. See how this is going on here? The dots are moving along. It's telling me back in there is well exposed. If I go one way or the other, it's telling me that I'm underexposed, that's going to be too dark, and that side we're going to be too bright. So on a Canon that needle will move, but here on a Nikon it's just the little marks moving across instead. So that's the shutter speed change. What about when I want to change the aperture? I just hold there's a button at the top here, the plus and minus, which is there for the flash. But if I press this down, then it allows me to move this wheel and the aperture changes. So when I release that button, the shutter speed changes, press that button and it's the aperture changing. So it's these two controls worked by your thumb while you're in position, and just pressing that first button makes the difference. Okay, so that's how to change shutter, aperture and manual, and then how to take the settings on here.